Hey guys, here for section 2-2, subtracting rational numbers. Uh, you recall from last week, you completed the pre-assessment for this, which is these exact same questions, these 6 questions. So I'd like to go over the correct answers for those. Yesterday we did our notes and learned how we take subtracting rational numbers and flip those into addition problems. Okay, so that's kind of our big key. We're not going to forget what we did from 2-1. We're just going to simply add an additional step in at the beginning, which is turning it into an addition problem. So here we go. Number 1 is 3 minus 5. And if we remember our steps, we need to add the opposite. So we're going to do 3. We're adding, so it's going to be plus. And the opposite of a positive 5 is going to be negative 5. So we turned 3 minus 5 into 3 plus a negative 5. Okay? Now we have the exact same question that we would have seen in our last section, adding rational numbers. So notice that we have a positive number and a negative number, which means that we have two different signs, and our steps would be to subtract their absolute values. So we're going to do 5 minus 3. There we go. 5 minus 3. And we know that the answer is going to be 2. So we'll plug a 2 in there. Now we need to look at the two numbers that we have, 3 and 5. 5 is larger and 5 is negative, meaning that our answer is going to be negative. So our final answer for question number 1 is negative 2. Okay, so just notice we had 3 minus 5. We added the opposite, turned that minus into a plus, and then we turned our positive 5 into a negative 5. Okay, moving on to number 2. Negative 4 minus a negative 9. I'm going to rewrite our negative 4. Remember, we're adding the opposite. Plus, and the opposite of negative 9 is positive 9. So our new problem is negative 4 plus 9. Notice that each of these numbers have different signs. Negative 4 is obviously negative, and 9 is positive, which means we're going to subtract their absolute values. 9 minus 4 is going to give us 5. But what number is larger here? We have 4 and 9. 9 is larger, and 9 is positive, so we're going to keep that number positive. Number 3, 11 minus 14. Okay, so we're going to take 11. We're going to add the opposite, which is going to be a plus, and then positive 14 is actually going to become negative 14 because the opposite of positive would be negative. And we have a new sign. Okay, or excuse me, we have a new number. Okay, so now we have 11 plus a negative 14. We have one positive number, one negative number. So they're different signs, so we're going to subtract absolute values. 14 minus 11. 14 minus 11 is going to be 3. And then we know that 14 is larger than 11, so it's going to be negative. My daughter wants to say hi really bad, so say hi real quick, Jules.
Hi.
Okay, so our final answer would be negative 3. Okay. Number 4, we're going to do 3 more. So just really quick to recap, we should have and maybe I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but you should have gotten this worksheet, and I fully understand that you did this pre-assessment before I went out. We did this last week. I believe it was on either Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. But Mr. Jones printed you off worksheets, and you should have a brand new one. And I would really prefer that you're filling these answers in, and I will give you credit for doing that. So I apologize. I'm bringing that up on question 3 of 6. But anyways, if you haven't already, rewind back and make sure that you fill that worksheet out with these answers and steps, please. But I'm going to finish up with these last 3 questions. So -2 minus a -7. We're going to add the opposite. And the opposite of -7 is going to be +7. Okay, so we now have a new problem. -2 plus 7. Those are 2 different signs. We have a negative and a positive. So remember, our steps are going to be to subtract the absolute values, which 7 minus 2 is going to give us 5. And then I know that 7 is larger than 2, and 7's positive, so our answer is going to be +5. Okay, and to finish up here, we have 0 minus a -5. So 0, add the opposite, it's going to be plus, and the opposite of -5 is going to be +5. Nothing fancy we need to do here. 0 plus 5 is going to give us a final answer of 5. And we'll finish up with number 6, which is going to be -2 minus 8. Okay, so -2. We're going to add the opposite, which is going to be plus. And now we need to, what is the opposite of +8? Is actually -8. Okay, now I don't think we've seen an example like this yet with our first 5 questions, but here we have 2 numbers with the same sign. We have 2 negative numbers, -2 plus a -8. And our rules for that is we're going to add absolute values. So 8 plus 2 is going to be 10. And because they're both negative numbers, -2 and 8, that means that your answer is going to be negative, which is -10. Okay, you'll hear me say this 10,000 times in the next week, but remember, it's the same steps we did with our adding rational numbers, but we're taking that subtraction problem and we're turning it into an addition problem by adding the opposite. Hope that makes sense. Please make sure that these 6 questions are filled in. We just went over the answers. I'll give you an easy 5 out of 5 for doing that. So hopefully you completed that. Thanks a lot. Bye.